Okay, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Emil, and in today's video I want to talk about my opinion on whether or not you should be buying stocks right now or whether you should be waiting until the stock market dips again. So as we all know, at the moment there was a big market sell-off. The stock market crashed greater than 30% in a matter of a month, and then it rebounded about 25%. So right now it's kind of hovering around that level. So in this video, I want to explain my thoughts on what I'm doing in regards to this current situation. The next few months are extremely hard to predict what's going to happen. So I'm going to give you my advice on what to do in these kind of situations. So before I start, I just want to say that this is not financial advice. Make sure you don't base your investing decisions off some bloke on the internet. Do your own research. But this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm telling my friends and my family to do in this current situation. So first, we need to find out why did stocks go back up? Like, the economy is completely shut down. Businesses aren't making anywhere near the kind of revenue that they would be in a normal situation. No one's spending any money. So why is stocks going up? It makes no sense. So I've come up with a few reasons why I believe the stock market has gone back up. And it's mostly to do with like people being at home. So because people are at home and people can't go out to restaurants, they can't go out to shops, they can't go to the cinema, they can't go on holidays. They have a lot of disposable income, myself included. I've been let go from my job recently, but I'm getting money from the government and I have absolutely nothing to spend it on. So of course I'm going to put that money to use, being an investor. So that's why I've pretty much put all my available income into my investment account, ready to invest in companies that I believe in. And I think a lot of retail investors are doing this as well. I was supposed to be going on holidays a few weeks ago, which got cancelled. So I'm waiting for the refund from that. So there'll be just more money. So that's one reason. People don't have any. People still do have money. People are worried, so they're not going to put all their money in the stock market. But they definitely see like, oh, the stock market's dropped. I have nothing to spend money on, so I might as well deploy some of this spare money into something. And just from a personal standpoint, I've had a number of friends ask me about investing, and a number of them are starting to invest right now, which is, yeah, it's great that they're starting to invest, but it's usually kind of a warning signal when new investors are flooding the markets. That's usually a wary sign, especially with stuff like cryptocurrencies. When your grandmother starts asking you about Bitcoin, you know that's probably a good time to start thinking about selling. But yeah, a lot of new investors are coming into the market. They think it's a good time to invest. And finally, people are noticing that the rate of infection for the virus is slowing down dramatically. Now, it's just kind of a linear growth rather than an exponential growth of new cases, particularly in Ireland. I have a friend who's a doctor, and there's about 500 to 600 new cases per day, whereas before it was 30, the next day it was 60, the next day it was 100, the next day it was 150. It was growing, the number of new cases per day, but now it's just the same amount of cases. It's actually slowing down a bit. So people are kind of thinking the stock market's a forward-looking voting machine. So people are thinking, okay, I think the economy's going to come back online in a few months. The virus has been contained to a reasonable amount, so businesses will be able to open back up, and people are not as worried as they were, because it was maybe a little bit of a dramatic sell-off in the beginning, and now it's just kind of making up for that. Okay, the next reason I think the stock market is climbing is because the central banks of the world have been printing money like never before. Here's just a graph of the purchasing power of $1 over the last 100 or so years. So as you can see, in 1913, $100 now equates to about $5, and this is all just because of money printing. So this is all just because of the Fed printing more and more money, which devalues the dollars that are currently in circulation. And recently, there's been multi-trillion dollars of Fed new money injected into the economy, So this money all has to go somewhere. So people see all this money being printed, like myself included, and think, okay, this cash that I have in my account, this is going to become worthless soon because of all the extra cash that's being flooded in the market. It's like when a company decides to sell some new shares to the market, it devalues the shares that you have because it becomes less scarce. So this cash becomes less scarce because there's another 6 trillion of it just floating around, just being injected into the market. So people are like, okay, I want something that will keep my purchasing power of this cash because I know this cash is going to lose maybe 5 to 10% of its value in the next couple of years. Well, that's what people think anyway. I'll talk about whether that's actually going to happen in 1 minute. Yeah, so the Fed is injecting money by buying bonds, and they're even buying bonds from companies now. For example, they bought junk bonds from Ford. So a junk bond, like Ford has issued bonds, and they've got a junk rating now because of how risky Ford's business is right now, how much debt they have already. So the Fed is just to save the jobs that Ford employ. They're deciding to just buy those junk bonds just to help Ford get through this time, which is probably a good idea. Well, I'm not going to get into the political ideas of it, but it's kind of crazy. Just it's not a free market. It's kind of a rigged stock market. So the government is buying, the Fed is buying the government's treasury bills, which reduces the bonds value. So if I own bonds and the Fed has been buying bonds, and I want to continue buying bonds, like the return on the bonds is pretty much nothing now. So I'm not going to purchase any bonds. I'm just going to let the government take those bonds. Where am I going to put my money instead of into the bonds? I'm going to probably put it into the stock market if I'm just a retail or institutional investor. And furthermore, the fact that the Fed is willing to buy these junk bonds from companies and buy bonds from companies kind of makes investors more comfortable in these kind of stocks because they're much less likely to go bankrupt now. It's kind of a rigged stock market, people are calling it, and people think that soon the Fed will be granted permission to actually just buy stock in companies soon, which would be kind of crazy. It's not a free market at all then. I have no idea if this would be a good thing or a bad thing in the long run. I'm not going to get into that, but I think it wouldn't be a great thing. I think sometimes you got to just let a company fail and it's like letting a natural fire go through a forest and killing all the shrubs and making room, and the old trees, killing all the old trees and the shrubs and making room for the new wave of plants, and in this case it would be businesses. So yeah, people are a little bit more confident because they think the Fed is going to save every company. So like Ford's not going to go out of business now, Boeing's not going to go out of business, so people are more confident in them, and that raises the overall stock market. At the $1,200 that people got, there was actually a spike in $1,200 deposits in Coinbase, which is kind of funny. So people are taking it. It shows that people are taking that stimulus check and they're not spending it in the economy like the Fed wants to. They're actually buying Bitcoin with it. Some people. So we can see that people are willing to invest in cryptocurrency right now. Their whole stimulus check. So obviously they have extra cash. So from that we can infer that people are willing to invest in stocks as well. Coinbase is somewhere where you can buy cryptocurrencies, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know that. Okay, so now the question you've all been waiting for. Should you be buying stocks right now? And I say it depends. It depends on your risk tolerance, and it depends how long you have in the stock market. For me, I'm still buying stocks. I think, even though I believe the stock market will drop again, I believe the stock market follows the earnings of the underlying companies, and the earnings of the underlying companies is going to drop. So logically, the stock prices should also drop, and in the long run, the stock market is rational. In the short term, it mightn't be rational, but in the long term, it does follow that trend. So even though I believe the stock market should and will drop, I'm still buying stocks, and the reason is I have a long time to invest. I have until I'm 65. I'm only 24, so I have another 40 years. So the difference of 20% to me, yeah, it's a lot, but in the long run, I'm still going to be up, so I'm not too worried. Another reason that I'm buying stocks right now is just to stay disciplined. I'm not as I don't like to think that I'm smarter than I am. So even though I think the stock market is going to do X, it might not do it. It might do Y. So I'm staying disciplined and just buying a small amount of stocks right now. I'm not going crazy, but I am still buying stocks just in case, whichever scenario plays out, whether the stock market doesn't go lower again, or it just goes back up and it's a V-shaped recovery, which I would give maybe a 20% likelihood, or if it goes down to the levels it saw in March, which I give maybe a 40% chance, or even if we go down all the way and break through that and go crash another 40% below that, and we have a depression, give that another maybe 20% likelihood. And yeah, I know that doesn't add up to 100%, but let's move on. But yeah, I'm just trying to stay disciplined and continue to buy through thick and thin. And right now it's unprecedented time, so no one really knows what's going to happen. But the stock market isn't on an all-time high, at least, so buying now isn't the absolute worst time you could be buying. In the grand scheme of things, 2 or 3 months ago would be in January. So I'm just picking off some stocks. I'll actually be putting a video up soon of 3 stocks that I'll be buying right now, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see that one, and also drop me a like. That would be hugely appreciated. So what could you be doing right now? Well, I've been purchasing Bitcoin and some stocks, some safe stocks that aren't going to go out of business. They may drop in stock price. They're not going to go out of business because they have good balance sheets. This is really important. They have good balance sheets and they have good competitive advantage, and people will be using that company for years. Like those are the kind of companies you want to invest in right now. You want to put if you're investing in stocks right now, I'd say those kind of companies, really safe companies, that have taken a little bit of maybe a 20 to 30% correction hit from their all-time highs, and we want to be putting most of your stock market money in those kind of companies, and maybe you can put 10 to 20% in some high risk, high reward stocks that have been absolutely hammered right now, such as like the cruise line industry or some airline stocks. If you have a long time to invest and you're willing to just kind of have a bet of kind of a risky play for maybe to get a 5x or something in the next couple of years, but just a small amount in that. I'd stick to the safe ones, and if you want to do the risky ones, that's on your own. Make sure you're willing to lose that money anyway, because there's a good chance you could. So let's just have a look at the Dow Jones over the last 100 years. So you can see this I really love this graph. It's called Human Innovation Always Trumps Fear. I think there has been max fear in the last couple of months, but as you can see, eventually it always rebounds. So we had the longest recovery time was 25 years, and that was the Great Depression. So people are saying that this could be similar to that. So if you're buying stocks now, I hope you can see my mouse. We're at this point right here. It's actually eerily similar right now. So there was a 30% drop, then a rebound, and this is roughly where we'd be. So yeah, if we're heading into depression, it's going to be a long way down. But if you're buying the whole way down, it's not a recovery time of 25 years. Here, your recovery time's maybe 20 years. If you keep buying down, you have a recovery time of a few years, all the way down. Recovery time 1 year. And then here, if you keep buying here, then you're doing really, really well. So make sure you're keeping some cash and not putting all your money in the stock market right now, because we could easily be heading into something like this. So this might look really scary, but we have to remember that this is a logarithmic graph. So this correction looks much bigger than it actually is. This one, it's a drop of 50 to 60%, and this is a drop of like 80% if you look at the price on the y-axis. So because it's logarithmic, it looks more volatile at the start, but these drops look smaller than they actually are. So just to take that into account. So yeah, the stock market should come back as it has for the last 100 years. So if you're investing with a long enough time horizon, 25 years minimum, then you will do okay in the long run if you're willing to deal with some pain in the short term. So yeah, the worst case scenario that we looked at there. So if you're buying now, you could not see a return for 15 years, or your stock will go down and down. The market dropped 80%, but we mentioned that we continue to buy for the next few years. Okay, so that's my opinions on the stock market right now. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'd hugely appreciate it if you could drop me a like. I have some really cool videos coming up soon, so make sure to subscribe to catch them. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks a million for watching, and cheers.